Hey all, here at OS Reviews. A few weeks back we checked out a smartwatch that has a built-in body temperature monitor. I thought it was a very neat and useful idea, especially right now as fever symptoms can be indicative of something more serious and requiring more medical attention and care. So today we're taking a look at another model that has a built-in thermometer slash body temperature monitor, except this one is in the form of a smart bracelet. So it's going to be lighter, doesn't take up as much space when you're wearing it on your wrist. It's also a little bit cheaper and sells around 30 bucks. This model is called the C6T, and it comes in a number of different colors in terms of the band straps. It does also feature ECG and PPG, just like the other smartwatch that we saw. In addition, it still has the typical optical sensor for faster monitoring of your heart rate throughout the day. It can also estimate your blood oxygen level, your blood pressure level, in addition to having some basic fitness like steps, although it doesn't have built-in GPS. Now, the band itself is rated to be IP67 waterproof, and another neat thing about this particular design is it doesn't require a proprietary cable to charge it. You can reveal the USB port, a standard one that you can plug into any USB charger. So as a result, packaging contents are pretty scarce and straightforward. We have just the band itself, in addition to a quick user manual, and that is pretty much it. Taking a closer look at the band, the screen here measures 0.96 inches diagonally, a pretty standard size for most smart bracelets, and it's an LCD IPS display which has pretty good viewing angles in terms of tilting it. The colors still look decent, although it's not AMOLED. Now, one thing to note is the entire screen isn't fully touch sensitive, but rather there is a dot towards the bottom here that you can tap on to interact with the various menus. As a quick size comparison, here it is next to another popular budget model. This is the Huawei Honor Band 5. And you can see how the C6T is a little bit wider, but overall dimensions are not too far off in terms of thickness, as well as the overall weight. It's much lighter than the aforementioned full-blown smartwatches. It seemed almost invisible as I was performing everyday tasks. Now taking a closer look at the UI here, we have the simple time and date, calories burned, your last heart rate, as well as your battery status remaining. You can long hold on the screen to change the wallpaper, and I can long hold once again to change it into another one that displays the temperature, which does work very well in terms of syncing that information over, shows it for the current day and also your heart rate as well as your steps, and once more that takes it back to the original version. So there's 3 watch faces on board. Otherwise, I can tap once to take a look at my quick activity throughout the past day in terms of steps, calories burned, and distance walked. Once more into doing a quick heart rate test using the optical sensor. If you want to use a ECG test for your heart rate to get a more medically grade accurate result, that takes about 60 seconds, and you can only initiate a full ECG test using the companion app. Once more takes you into a blood pressure monitoring mode, which also uses the optical sensor and then kind of estimates your blood pressure based on an algorithm. Once more for the blood oxygen level, the SpO2. So a higher concentration, say 99% blood oxygen level, indicates that you're very active and healthy, versus lower levels can sometimes be indicative of you being more tired. And along with fever symptoms, a lower SpO2 metric can also be tied or somewhat correlated to COVID. So it's another kind of interesting function that's a bit more useful in our current times if you're feeling wary and want to do a quick test, although it's not going to be a perfect correlation, of course. Now, in terms of training, this is the sports modes, and as aforementioned, it's not really a, I would say, super sports-oriented fitness tracker, but you can take a quick look at how long you've been performing a sport, and during a sport session, what it will do is continuously track your heart rate. There's a few different options here. That was walking, this one is cycling, once more for a jump rope, and once more for a badminton, table tennis, and that's it. Again, if you want to track your location on a map, for example, if you're running outdoors, what you have to do is bring along your phone and then use your phone's GPS if you want to track your route on a map. Once more for missed messages, so very quick notifications, and one more for the body temperature monitor, which takes about 20 seconds to do a measurement, so it's not instantaneous, but the speed is about the same as getting a heart rate test. Thermometer function here is much improved compared to the Wagoda smartwatch, just because on this unit here, if you guys recall, we had to actually put the watch physically close to our forehead to do the test. So this is actually the sensor module, and you had to put it close to your head for about 30 seconds to get a measurement, which is kind of uncomfortable, versus on this one, the sensor is actually mounted on the rear. You don't have to put it into a special position just to do the test. doesn't require you to lift it and put it onto your forehead. So I actually like this a lot more, and the accuracy is very similar to that other smartwatch. But in practice, I found that the temperature was pretty close to a traditional thermometer when I did a comparison test earlier. Typically, it's about off by 0.5 to 1 degrees, usually lower, just because the contact with your body is not quite as secure all the time unless you are kind of pressing down on it. And the recommendation is to stay indoors in a place where the actual band itself and your body is at a good resting temperature. Finally, under more, we have a few more selected functions, including finding your phone. So it's going to kind of vibrate your phone if it's connected using Bluetooth. You can actually change the brightness of the display. So we can long hold here just to make it a little bit brighter, as you can see. I think it presents a nice amount of information that's useful and very intuitive in terms of the controls, not anything too fancy. The app is called Dayband, and it's shared across many fitness trackers from Shenzhen, so it is a generic one, but it works decently well. Syncing is pretty fast and responsive, thanks to the use of a pretty up-to-date Bluetooth chip. Usually it takes less than 20 seconds for the information to be transferred over. Now, in terms of battery life, the fitness tracker does last you for about a week before you need to recharge it again, with some syncing and sports tracking in between. Now, returning to the app here, we have just the temperature information, your stats for the day. A ring here will turn green if you've reached your daily goal that you've set for yourself. You can also take a look at more statistics in terms of when you were active throughout the day, your sleep, as well as your last heart rate and blood pressure tests that were taken. I can tap on the ring to take a closer look at points during the day where I was active, as well as the sessions broken apart by different hours. I can swipe over to take a look at the information from past days, and the process here works pretty well without too many complaints. And on the bottom, we can also turn to a 7-day view, which gives you the statistics and averages for the week. Under sports, this is where you can use to activate the GPS in your phone if you want to track, say, a running session. And now my location is being tracked, in addition to the vital stats are going to be tracked using the band in terms of the heart rate, cadence, steps, things like that. Now under the device tab is where we can take a look at the firmware information. I can take a look at alarms, which I can set up so that it will vibrate to try and wake me up, say in the morning or before a meeting, things like that. Other reminders I can set, including sedentary, so it will try to vibrate if you've been sitting down for longer than, say, 60 minutes, 30 minutes after lunch. You can actually set up customized times, which is pretty neat. I can use it to take images using it as a selfie key. I can also turn on or off the gesture of raising it to wake the screen. I can turn it off if I want to conserve on battery, and in that case it will only turn on when I tap on the touch sensitive area to wake it up manually. I can also change the time in terms of the duration that I want it to be turned on. Universal settings is where we can do things like change the 12 to 24 hour format, the language that the system is set at, as well as units, things like metric versus the British system, degrees C versus degrees Fahrenheit. Returning to this main screen and talking about the functions of sleep, heart rate, and blood pressure. For example, with heart rate, you can take the aforementioned ECG test by going into it and tapping on a single test versus continuous test. It will also tell you your minimum and maximum rates during the session, in addition to kind of the state that you're in, and depending on your heart rate, it will categorize you as being in kind of a danger zone versus if you are in more of a tranquil state. So the monitoring component is still left for you to decide, but it does tell you some more statistics in terms of if you're in a healthy range or not, simple things like that that you can monitor using the app. Finally, in terms of sleep, it also does function well enough to delineate between deep versus light sleep. However, it's not an always-on tracker in sleep tracking. So that means it can only track sleep during the regular hours of around 10 p.m. to, say, noon during the day. Outside of the designated sleeping time, it won't really track that as sleeping. So it doesn't have that always-on tracking of sleep, which Huawei's Honor Bands have. Although this is also pretty common in budget fitness trackers, Xiaomi's Mi Band is also lacking that more precision that we have from the aforementioned Huawei. So it gives you a nice estimate for sleeping at night. Other metrics, including steps and calories burned, that also works without too many problems. Compared with the Huawei Honor Band 5, I found that the number of steps registered was also within the same ballpark. If you shake it, it doesn't really count it as a real step. The accelerometer is calibrated pretty well to differentiate between that. So that's more or less it for our hands-on review of the C6T fitness tracker that has a built-in thermometer, works quite well, and is more convenient, I think, than the smartwatch version that we saw that requires you to press it against your forehead. Mostly just some light tracking and giving you some time and date information. I think that you'll be pleased with this. So if you are interested, you can check out more details in the links down below. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the C6T, a very unique budget fitness tracker smart bracelet that has a built-in thermometer.